Well, welcome everybody. Lesson number one for the Buyer's Agent Blueprint Lead to Buyer Broker program. All right, so lesson one, we're going to go over the NAR changes in the buyer process. Make sure that we have a solid platform of what we're doing, and we're going to get into protecting income and all that good stuff with working with buyers. So the process and the methods that I'm going to show you guys is going to be how to move someone from a new lead to a signed client. What I'm going to show you today and through this program is what's put into the top 1% of buyer's agents here in San Diego. So these are tested and proven methods. Anything new that I learn along the way, we are going to sprinkle in and make sure that you guys have that. The goal is that we will have time at the end for questions, at least 5 minutes. The goal is 10 minutes. We'll see. Sometimes I get a little ambitious with the number of slides, so we'll see how it goes. But today we're going to go over a course overview real briefly, talk about the NAR changes. That way we all know exactly what they are. Homebuyer lifecycle, how to secure your commission, buyer broker agreements, and then key performance indicators. So that's going to be the meat and potatoes of today. All right. If you guys have any questions, type them into the chat. That way I can just scroll back through them, or you can save them for the end. But I'm going to just plow through this, and then that way, when you guys go back for the recording, you have a clean recording of it, and then a Q&A at the end. So, all right. This is the whole course overview. So it's 8 weeks long, 2 classes a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. We're going to start off with today, NAR changes in the buyer process. On Thursday, we're going to get into prospecting and lead follow-up part 1. All right, so this is how to have the conversation. This is how to get the intel that we're going to talk about today. The next 4, we're going to get into the value propositions. All right, this was originally what this program was going to be built as, was just these 4 classes, but spending a lot more time going into it, and we realized quickly that this wasn't enough to offer you guys. So we just said, let's do the whole thing. All right, so there are 30 total value propositions that we have available to us. We don't use all 30 at the same time. If anyone can come up with a creative enough scenario where you could use all 30, I would like to hear that. But we'll see. The first time buyer who's buying their second investment property, whatever. So we'll figure that out. But we're going to give you all these. This way you guys understand the value that everybody's been talking about since March. If a buyer's agent could deliver value, this is the value, right? So we're going to show you the entire process for this, how to determine what they're going to tell you what the pain is, determine what the problem is. Once we know the problem, this is the value that you're going to offer to solve that problem for them. From there, we're going to go right back into prospecting lead follow-up part 2. From there, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the buyer consultation. Right, so all of this, class 1 through 7, is to set the consultation. Class 8 through 16 is the buyer consultation. All right, so we're going to what is it? We're going to go part 1 with the pre-consult, part 2 with the pre-consultation, buyer consultation formats, in-office, field-based, explaining the commissions, asking for the business, and objections. There is going to be some time built in here where we will hopefully be able to do a little bit of live role play for anyone who's adventurous enough. If not, I'll role play with myself. But hopefully we'll get someone who really wants to get to it. So this is the course overview, right? It's about 16 hours of live instruction. So we should be good to go. All right. This is why we're here. National Association of Realtors. Right, there was a big settlement back in March, the lawsuit. So real quick, just so you guys have an idea of what's been going on. So it's been 10 to 15 plus years, if not longer, that the NAR has been fending off litigation. Right, and so they have been successful in winning all the way up until I think it was October of last year, almost a year ago. And the problem that NAR had was every time they won, the attorneys and the plaintiffs were learning how to be more effective, and they finally landed one, right? And so this was a bunch of sellers who decided that they were being unfairly charged a commission, and there was price fixing and all this other stuff that is just ridiculous. But they won, and so at the end of the day, the NAR settled. They paid them a bunch of money, and we have new rules. That's why we're here, right? And so we don't need to explain all this to clients. We don't need to explain all this to leads. It's, look, there's a lawsuit. The rules have changed. Here's the rules I have to follow. right? They're here to provide more transparency. It's putting more power behind you. It's a good thing because now agents have to interview instead of you inheriting an agent and you just work with whoever. You're going to have to sit down and sign an agreement that obligates you to work with that agent. So it's actually going to encourage you to interview agents, to pick the best agent for you. And so that's why we have this course, to make you the best agent. All right, so from here, I'm going to move this over here to this other screen. All right, buyer agent commissions can no longer be advertised in the MLS. That's the biggest change, all right? That data is now gone forever, all right? We're going to go through what the historical data is, but it's gone. And unless somebody gets really creative with how they're going to start collecting this, it's not coming back. So it can be advertised everywhere except the MLS. It can be on agent websites. It can be discussed via a phone call with the listing agent. It can be perhaps concessions. That's still, a lot of this is to be determined. I am not giving you legal advice. Let's also be very clear about that. It could be on a third-party property website, right? It can be anywhere except the MLS, right? The one thing that a lot of websites or companies are concerned about is if they start divulging this information, are they in the crosshairs next for whatever attorney wants to sue them? All right, so I don't know that we're going to see this on Zillow or Redfin or any of that type of stuff. I don't know. Redfin has every right in the world to do it because they're a brokerage. Zillow, I guess you could argue it. So I don't know. There's some of this that's still being worked out. But here's the bottom line. Your paycheck is going to be negotiated with every single buyer that you work with. There is no more listing agent negotiating for you. You're going to negotiate it. So I'm going to show you how to protect that, how to actually grow that. Because what's come out of this is I make more money now. It's pretty awesome. I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. So the days of throwing somebody in the car because they called or you got a ding on your phone from Zillow, those days are over. The buyers have to sign an interview and sign a buyer broker agreement. So you're gonna have to interview an agent and agree to work with them. We're gonna get into the types of buyer brokers today. You're gonna have to be interviewed, right? That's the bottom line. So if the agent's plan is I'm gonna buy them Starbucks and I'm gonna open up the door and they're going up against me, they're not gonna have a lot of income because I can buy Starbucks and I can open up the door, but I also bring a lot more to the table than that. And that's what I want to pass on to everybody is what's the more to bring to the party. So you need to be able to offer value. You're going to be able to have to offer that in the interview process in order to be hired, right? There's data that shows even pre-NAR that a buyer will go to 5, 10, 15, 20 open houses. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20 agents that all have their contact info. And you majority of them are probably going to call them at least once. So if you get a buyer that comes through an open house or a buyer that comes through Zillow or whatever that is, they're talking to other agents also. So the value that you're going to bring has to be there. So the value you offer is going to be directly related to the commission amount you're going to receive. All right, so this is good news and it's bad news. I'm going to show you both, but at the end of the day, this is a very positive thing. The top agents that I know and myself included, this is the greatest opportunity that we are ever going to have as real estate agents to make more money and to help more families. All right. There we go. All right. So how does this work? We need to establish and maintain trust with clients, with leads, and then with clients, right? Any buyer broker agreement that I write that I have somebody sign has a cancel at any time clause. With it, you send me an email and 24 hours later our agreement's over. Right? A lot of the agreements that are written or they're state agreements, especially the car forms, they have a cancel clause in them already, right? Now the car one has a 30-day notice. That's going to start going away because people are going to realize they don't need to do that. Right? So establishing and maintaining trust to start and then maintaining that throughout is important. It's a process and it takes time. Right? It's from your first interaction with somebody. It's built upon transparency and honesty. Right? It's the same way that if you're sending out mass emails, people have a way of sniffing that out at this point. Right? 15 years ago, you could send a mass email and they thought you were taking the time to send them a personal email. Some buyers are special and they get the email from the MLS and they will thank you for curating this wonderful list and to personally sending it to them, which they quickly learn that's not what that is. All right. So full disclosure, right? We always want to provide the accurate information about the process and obviously the properties, right? The process, as this is changing, This is not completely embedded into everybody's mind. So it's the process, and it's making sure they understand what that is. Obviously, with properties, laws, limitations, all that stuff is important. The focus right now is we need to interview and get hired. You're going to have to rapidly establish trust in order to have the client or the lead sign on the dotted line and become a client. All right. Manage expectations. All right. That's a thing that is not always the easiest to do, but we want to set realistic expectations about timelines, costs, challenges, how much they can get for their money, especially here in California. All right. We want to avoid surprises later. All right. This doesn't mean that you need to be uber aggressive or assertive or getting way out ahead of things. There's a lot of value to letting things play out, but that also comes with experience. It also comes with having a mentor or a team lead or a broker or whatever that is that you can go to and ask questions about, that they can share their experiences and that they also know what they're doing. Right? There's a lot of problems that I have solved haven't been by me taking the bull by the horns and trying to take control of the situation. It's come by me letting it play out and being aware enough to know when do I need to go talk to my team lead and say, hey, what do I need to do here? Right? And a lot of this now is becoming easier for anybody as you've been in the business long enough. All right, from here, whoop, feel like we might have a slide out of place. All right, changes in the NAR settlement. Now I need to go back. What are we doing here? There are more of these, so we apparently have a slide out of place. So we're going to keep going. Buyer broker agreements. Everybody has to have one in order to see a house, unless it's at an open house. All right, we already know that. Buyer side commissions are not advertised in the MLS. What this means, and part of the transparency, part of the process with buyers is every house starts with a $0 commission right now. The seller might have a signed agreement of some sort with the listing agent that says, I'll pay 2%, I'll pay 3%, whatever that is, but that's not legally binding anymore, right? And so it is going to come down to, if there's one offer and that's the only game in town, probably going to get what they're asking for. If there's 5 offers and it's going to come down to what's the net for the seller, right? So whatever they had agreed upon, it's not binding, right? We need to keep that in mind. And the third part is what's most important to us is, and also the buyers, how are buyer commissions getting paid? Right? These are the biggest changes. So we're going to walk you through all this today. Back to establishing and maintaining trust. All right. Demonstrate expertise, right? You got to understand the market and know what's going on, and you have to educate and guide buyers through the process, right? Market knowledge, this is just being a professional, right? It's understanding what's going on. You can talk at a 30,000-foot view about San Diego County and everything from Borrego Springs to La Jolla, from Fallbrook way up in the north all the way to the border of Mexico, right? But if somebody's looking for a specific property in a specific area, you might not know that area all the time, but you need to get smart on this. And this is just being prepared for when you're going to sit down and work with somebody. Educating them. I take a very consultative approach to the way I work with buyers, and that's the huge thing that I'm going to show you through this is what value can I bring, which is educating. It's consulting with them. And then going through the entire process is not me telling them what to do, it's me educating them and walking them through the process, and that comes to guiding them, right? There's always the buyer who's looking at $1 million property and they're going to write an offer for 750 because they understand the market, and this is like, okay, cool, like we can do that, but let me guide you to what's going to happen here, right? Let me guide you to what it's going to take to win. Let me guide you in a counter offer situation. Consistent communication is very important. This is what have you done for me lately? I want to drive through the fast food restaurant and get my food in 5 minutes. I don't want to wait for it to be cooked. All right, so responding within 24 hours at the latest, right? But you need to be clear in setting that standard, that expectation with the client up front. Same thing with when are you working and when are you not, right? I'm blessed to be in a position where in general I don't work on Sundays. There are times where I have to though, but I have to make that clear to my clients, like, hey, Sunday is the day that I have off that I spend with my family. Right after 7 o'clock at night, I'm probably not answering the phone. I'm going to get back to you first thing in the morning, right? And then active listening, right? That's an obvious thing, but that means you got to actually listen to what they're saying, not to say the next thing you want to say, but listening to understand. And you have to be willing to ask follow-up questions. So here's some great questions for you to write down or remember. Tell me more about that. That's more of a statement than a question, but if you put a question mark at the end of it, now it's a magical question. Why is that important to you? What does that look like to you? Right? Those are the three best questions, especially if you're stuck on the phone or talking to somebody in person. Tell me more about that. And then let them tell you more. Why is that important to you? Right? Hey, what are you looking for in a house? I want a backyard. I want a big backyard. Why is that important to you? Right? Oh, we have 9 kids and 6 dogs and we like to have parties. Okay, you need a big backyard. Right? Or I need a big backyard because we like to entertain. Okay, what does that look like to you? How many people do you guys normally have come over? Well, normally we have one family with 2 kids. So we have a total of like 4 kids in the backyard. Right? Or we have parties for work, we'll have 35 couples over, right? It's like, holy cow, we got to know what's going on, right? So that's a pretty obvious example. But through all this, those are the important questions. Tell me more about that. Why is this important to you? And what does that look like to you? Open-ended questions, let them talk. Okay. From here, we're going to deliver value throughout. Right? We're going to offer resources, so referrals to a mortgage broker, inspectors, contractors. You're going to show them that you have everything covered. Everything is under control. Yes, we have a wonderful list of vetted contractors, vendors for nearly anything you would need. And if you come up with a need that I don't have somebody for, I will do the research for you. I will provide you with 3 options with all their contact info and their number of 5-star ratings on Yelp or whatever it is you're using, right? We're going to do that research for them. Long-term relationships. This is the biggest thing that makes your business go on its own, right? You're developing clients for life. That's always the goal. So you're going to stay in touch with them. You're going to follow up with them. Are they thinking, do they need a handyman? Do they need a remodel? Do they need a whatever, right? If your refrigerator is making weird noises in the middle of the night, I want you to automatically think, I'm going to call Ryan in the morning because he knows who to send that to me, right? So a lifelong advisor, that's how you're also going to get the referrals. It's all about the experience. It's all about their experience. People will pay whatever you want for the experience. That's their thing. So customize a property search based off what they're looking for, based off the lifestyle they're looking for, right? One of the value propositions we're going to get to is the features versus benefits worksheet, right? The features, my 7-year-old daughter can fill out a Zillow search for somebody. It's not that hard, but she can't figure out, how do I find a home that's within a certain distance of somebody's work? She can't help somebody identify a home that meets their safety or security concerns, right? That's where us as the professionals and as the experts need to step in. And we need to be empathetic, right? Not my strong suit necessarily, but it is something that we do need to understand, that buying a home is stressful. If you've done it, you understand that is not a fun thing to do, right? But it's something that we're going to acknowledge their emotions. We're going to tell them that we're coming alongside them. We're here to support them, that this is not a problem. We can solve this issue. We will fix this problem. We will solve this issue. And we come alongside them with that, right? And that's the biggest thing, right? If somebody asks you, what do you do? Right? Oh, I buy and sell houses. You don't. The buyer buys it, seller sells it, right? What we do is we facilitate that process and we solve problems. That is what we do. We are problem solvers. So we're going to provide solutions, right? If you are not always expected to have the answer off the top of your head like that. Very few people in this industry do. They've been in the business for 20 plus years if they do. So we need to be able to solve problems for them with inspections, with negotiations, with title, with escrow, with whatever it is. We need to be the person that's solving the problems. We need to be able to negotiate effectively, right? If we can communicate our ability to negotiate it effectively, they're going to feel more comfortable with getting the best deal. So we're going to need to clearly explain the negotiation process, which is just simply part of the home buying process. And we need to assure them and then deliver on offering strategic advice through that process. All right. All right. From here, the life cycle of a buyer, right? We need to understand, what is it that we're going up against here and what does this actually look like? With this, let's get to it. What or who is the buyer and where do they come from? Right? Anybody is a potential buyer. It comes down to their ability to do it and their motivation to do it. Ability to do it is they have to be able to afford the home. The motivation is, are they motivated enough to do it? Right? We can either run from pain or we can run to pleasure. Most people run from pain. A family that's a family of four that is living in a two-bed, two-bath condo that's 1,000 square feet, they have pain. They need more room. Right? If there's an older couple that is living in a 3,500 square foot home and they're in their late 60s, 70s, they're having a hard time getting up and down stairs. It's a nightmare trying to take care of the house and keep it clean. They have pain to downsize, right? A family of four that lives in a 2,600 square foot home that has every single thing they would ever need, but it doesn't have the super new kitchen. They don't have a lot of pain to go buy a new house, right? So where do they come from? They come from anywhere, right? Some of the common ones, sphere of influence. That can be people that you know. It could be people that you know of. It can be your dry cleaner. It could be your mailman. It could be someone you meet at the grocery store. It could be anybody that's in your sphere of influence, anybody you're having interactions with. It can come from referrals. Those are the best. It comes from real estate websites, Zillow, Redfin, wherever it is. Leads will come in. Open houses are a great and normally free way to get a whole bunch of good leads. Those are the people that are actively out in their car, driving around, getting in and out of the car. They're somewhat motivated to buy a house. Social media, pay-per-click, marketing efforts, could be mailers or whatever. They come from anywhere, right? And so what we need to be able to do is determine, is this a valid buyer? Is this a qualified buyer? Or is this somebody who is not going to buy? All right. And just because they're willing to talk to you does not mean they're a valid buyer. So we have a funnel, right? Buyer leads. We need to meet them where they are at all times. That is the number one piece of advice that I want to make sure all of you have. We need to meet them where they're at. If we're ahead of where they are, they're not going to talk to you. If you are way behind where they're at, they're going to find someone else that's right where they're at. You need to determine where they at and where do I need to meet them at. So we have two different phases. We have a research phase and a transaction phase. Right? Research phases, they're trying to figure out, what the heck am I trying to do? How do I do this? So they're interviewing agents, they're talking to lenders, they're looking on Zillow. They might even go to an open house, but they're trying to figure out, what am I wanting to do here? Right? They might know, hey, I want to be in this specific area, and I know I needed 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and I know I need a yard because I got kids that want to run around. But that might be all they know, right? They might also be brand new to an area and going, hey, we need to buy a house. Like, what are the different parts of this area? Where do all the cool kids live, right? They don't know. But then from there, we get into the transaction phase, right? And so these people have hired an agent. They have a pre-approval letter. They're out looking at homes. They're ready to start writing offers. So we need to figure out, where is this new lead in this process? If you get somebody who comes in off of a Facebook lead, they are normally a lot closer to the top of this funnel than they are to the bottom. They're a lot closer to the beginning stages. They're looking around. They're trying to figure things out. If you get somebody who comes to an open house or comes through Zillow, they're going to normally be a lot closer to the bottom. Facebook ads are very cheap. Zillow leads are not. Open house leads are free. Right? You just got to have an open house to do. But we need to figure out, where are they, because then we can meet them where they're at, determine what their challenges are, what their problems are, and then we can deliver value. When we can offer them value, we can get them to sit down for a buyer consultation. This is how we determine where they're at in the phone. Magic red phone. Mine isn't red, it's a black iPhone. But that little thing right there has to ring, and it has to make their phone ring. And that's the only way we're going to find out. Some of the younger kids out there these days like texting, but if you get them on the text, get them to a phone call. It's more efficient, it's more effective, and it's overall going to be a better situation. So the telephone is how we determine where they are in the funnel. Take a screenshot of this if you can. This is gold. That's why I have the gold bars on there. My pure creativity right there in the lower right hand corner. All right. This needs to be on your desk, on your wall, next to your desk. It needs to be in your head. All right. These are the 7 key pieces of intel that we are looking for with anyone, buyer or seller, that we come across. Thing number 1 is obvious. We need their contact info. Those of you that have ever received a lead off of a portal of some sort, or you have a buyer's line, or you have an office line, you don't always get their contact info. So the first thing you need to know whether you're going to get it or not, right? Normally, if it's a Zillow lead, they're going to pass the information to you. But here's the thing. You want to make sure you know who you're talking to. First name, last name. The easiest way to do this is, hey, in case we get disconnected, what's the best phone number to call you back at? Right. Well, don't you see it on your call already? No, you actually came through a system. Oh, okay, it's blah 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 blah. They're going to give you the number. Right. You always want to confirm that. From there, numbers 2 through 6, it are largely situationally dependent. But the number one to me is I want to know what their timeline is. So number 4 on there, right? Because the timeline is going to allow me to categorize them appropriately. It's going to allow me to determine how frequently I need to reach out to them. But overall, what are the other things that we need to know? What's their past or current situation in history? Are they renting or do they own? If they're renting, when does their lease expire? If they're renting, have they ever owned before? This could be a situation where they've owned a house for 17 years in Northern California. They sold it, they moved down and they're renting in Southern California, and now they're ready to buy now that they have a good idea of the area. Right? So have they bought before? Yeah, we actually bought 10 years ago. We bought 5 years ago, and then my job transferred me. Right? We want to know what their experience is. If they currently own, do they have to sell to buy? If they do, then we know we're transitioning from working on a buyer to working on a seller. We also know that if they say, no, we're going to be able to keep the house, we want to dig further into that. Have you guys ever been a landlord before? Has anybody walked you through the cost analysis of renting a property out versus selling it? There's a lot of information to dig into there. Number 3, their wants, needs, hopes, and dreams. Right? This is the needs clearly the most important. Like, we need more space, we need to own, we need to have a yard, we want to have an extra bedroom, we want to have a playroom, we want to have a pool in the backyard. We're hoping that it's been remodeled and it has the cool white counters. We're dreaming of a place that's right by the beach where I can look out my bedroom window and I can see the ocean, right? We want to know what their wants, needs, hopes, and dreams are, right? This is not the most important information, right? I have legitimately, this is good or bad, you can argue it either way. I have gone through an entire phone call to set a consultation, shown up and done an entire consultation and never actually asked them what the heck they want to buy. And they signed and then told me afterwards what they wanted to buy, and they bought that house. Because at the end of the day, if you're an order taker, okay, we need a 4 bed and a 3 bath and a 2,000 square foot home. Does this look right, sir? Okay, will you be paying with cash or card? Right? Don't be an order taker, right? We need to figure out all the other stuff that is the actual problems to solve. Let the Redfin agents who open doors for a living, let them be the order takers, because they're not going to be competing with us in the very near future. Right, timeline is important. We're going to get into why when we go through the different categories. Pain points are huge. This is where we get into the value. In some subsequent lessons, we're going to dig full on into this. But what a buyer is going to tell you about is their pain. What are the problems they're having? What are the problems they're facing? What are they feeling? They might not know what's causing the feeling. They might not know what's causing the pain, which is the problem. So we want to listen to the pain and determine or discern what's the problem that they're facing. Once we know what that is, now I can offer them value. That's where the USPs or the value propositions come into play. Personality type, right? We're going to get into this. Disc profiles, right? Are they a driver? Are they an amiable person? Are they an analytical person? We're going to get into that because it's going to tell you how to work with them. It's going to open up more opportunities for you, right? Someone that's a driver will run right over the top of an amiable person and never get hired if they can't identify that this is an amiable person or this is an expressive person. I am very much a driver, right? And so if I run into an expressive person and they're going blah 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 talking, it drives me crazy, right? But I now know, because I understand what their disc profile is, I understand how their personality works, that I need to just slow the heck on down and let them talk, because I don't need to bring a ton of data to them. I don't need to run right over the top of them. I need to make them feel heard. I need to come alongside them. Right? And when I can do that, now I'm helping more people instead of one of the 4 personality types. The last thing is, who else do they know? Right? You might end up having somebody that comes through the open house. They're the neighbor 3 doors down, and they just bought 3 weeks ago. And they're like, hey, wow, we're just new in the neighborhood. We just want to see what this house looks like. Awesome. Right? Like, that's a future seller is what that is. but that's also somebody that you can deliver value to, and maybe their coworker wants to buy a house also, and they haven't started talking to an agent yet. So these are the 7 key pieces of intel. This is the goal with every conversation, and the best part is we want to nail this in 6 minutes. So that's the challenge. All right, let's talk about categories. Right? This is why timeline is the most important. A new lead is just that. They came into your pipeline. They need to be moved into the qualified category. You guys can call these whatever you want. These are the terms that I use. You could call them A, B, and C, 1, 2, and 3, whatever you want. I don't care. That's up to you. Just stay consistent with it. Qualify, what that means to me is I need to qualify them. Is this a valid buyer? Where are they at in the process? Is this somebody who is a first time buyer and this is the first button they push to, hey, I want to see this house? Is this somebody in New York in the middle of the winter who's looking at sunny Southern California and says, I want to live there because it's not 7 degrees and snowing right now and it's 2 o'clock in the morning in New York and they're not buying anything? Right? I just somebody who's been out, they've been writing offers and they can't get one accepted and they need to make a change, right? I need to figure out who I'm talking to. They should be in this qualify stage for 10 to 14 days max. If I can't get a hold of them in 10 to 14 days and I don't know anything about them, dump them into the archive category, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. All right? A lot of times a lead will come in 12 to 18 months before they're actually going to buy a house. And so if we are deleting them out of the system and we're never ever reaching back out to them, you could be missing opportunities. Where if you move them to an archive category, which I'm going to get to in a minute, there will be touch points as you go through this, especially as you're building a bigger database, where you're going to be able to meet them where they're at. All right. But in this 10 to 14 days, 10 plus phone calls, 5 plus text messages, 5 plus emails. The phone calls, obviously, you're going to hold the phone up to your head or a headphone or a headset or whatever it is. Text messages in general should be not mass texts. Emails in general, these 5 should not be mass emails. You want to mix a couple in, go for it, right? One thing that I will do, a hack to that, is at the beginning of each week, I will create a new talking point for the week, right? And so just to give you guys a hint of what that is this week, it's have you had any, are you aware of why it might be a good idea to buy or sell in 2025? Has anyone explained to you the advantages of buying or selling as we get into the new year? It's an open-ended question. People that are wanting to engage will engage. People that are not are going to ignore it, right? But I will create that text message as a template because now as I'm calling through, I can click a couple buttons and it auto sends it to them, right? I don't have to type it up each time and send it. I don't have to copy paste from a Word document or whatever it is. From here, these are the 2 most important categories. Under contract is obviously important. These are the buyers that you have with a buyer broker agreement with. They are in general ready to buy right now or very shortly. They're your signed clients. This is the fastest way to a paycheck. These are the people that you've sat down with, you've met with, they've agreed to work with you. You're going to need to be in touch with them 2 to 3 plus times a week, right? In general, phone calls or text messages, emails do not really qualify unless you have somebody who says, look, just email. I'm so busy at work. When you email me, I can, there was a physician I worked with who was a surgeon and he's like, you can't call me. I can't talk, right? But if you send me a text, I can have a nurse read it to me. If you send me an email, I can have my assistant or my nurse read it to me while I'm doing whatever. I can stop for a second and I can have them read it to me. I can tell them what to say back to you. Really kind of weird, but it worked. People that are under contract, you always need to have a next planned step for. You need to know what the next step is. They need to know what the next step is. For hot, these are people that are buying in the next 90 days, right? So at this point, they're buying before the end of the year where we're currently recording this. These are the most valuable leads that you have, right? Difference between a client and a lead. Client you sat down with, they have a buyer broker agreement. Leads, somebody you haven't sat down with and they haven't signed with you yet. Right? So these are the fastest leads to a paycheck. These are clients to a paycheck, leads to a paycheck. These can go from hot to under contract inside of an email that came through with a house that they like the way it looks and now they want to sit down and meet with you. All right. With these guys and gals, we're touching base with them 1 to 2 times a week, right? Don't go overboard, meet them where they're at. There needs to be a reason other than, well, Ryan said we need to call you twice a week, so I'm calling you. How are you? Right? Like that. Don't do that, obviously. These guys also always need to have a next step. These are the last 3 categories: warm, watch, and archive. Warm is 3 to 6 months out. So this right now, this is in Q1 of 2025. One call every couple weeks, right? It can be a text message if that's their preferred method. But these guys and gals need to always, you need to know what is my next step with them. The next step could be following up with if they've connected with a lender, following up whether they've read the email where you sent them research. It could be, hey, this is a unique property. It's perfectly in line with what you're looking for. Let's go get a feel for this, right? Watch is the next one from there. Those are 6 to 12 months out, right? These people, once a month, phone call. You need to always have a next step of what you're doing with them, not what they necessarily need to do, right? But you will tell them what they need to do, but you're going to follow up on that. With a hot or an under contract, they're going to have a next step. They need to go do this, right? And you're going to meet them there. With warm and watch, where are you wanting them to go? You're following up with them, you're shepherding them and guiding them through the process. The archive leads 12 plus months out. This could be somebody who has to wait until they file taxes for whatever. It could be we need to wait until our son hits whatever grade. It could be we're waiting for a job promotion, we're waiting for stocks to vest, whatever it is. It could also be somebody who just bought 3 months ago and you're like, darn it, I missed that opportunity. But now they're in the archive lead. You're going to touch base with them once a quarter, right? These are future sellers. These are future buyers that we're looking at. All right, so these are the different categories. This is why timeline is the most important thing, because I need to know where to put somebody. If I put a hot buyer who's out ready to write offers into a watch category and I contact them once a month, I am either going to get extremely lucky and call them on the right day and be able to work with them, or I'm going to miss it and they're going to talk to somebody else and they're like, oh, Ryan, dang, like you never called us back. We were ready to go that next weekend. We wanted to see homes and you never got back with us. So we called another agent, right? And you're like, right, it happens, but we don't want it to happen. We want to minimize these mistakes. All right, so from here, how do we get paid? How do we protect our commissions? All right. The end of the day answer is there is no change in the way that we get paid. There's no change in the way that buyers are paying commission or that our commissions are being paid. It's always been the responsibility of the buyer to pay their agent. However, if somebody else makes that payment on their behalf, they are not obligated to pay it anymore. All right, we don't get paid twice. If anyone can figure that out, let me know and we'll go into business teaching people that. But here's the deal, the 3 ways, right? And this is important, write this down or take a screenshot and then write down the statistics that I'm going to put next to it. Number 1, buyer pays the full commission. That's about 1% of the time, maybe 2% in San Diego. Right, in Seattle, I think, which has been doing this for about 5 or 6 years, I think it's 1%, somewhere in that ballpark. There are some sellers who are just like, whatever, screw them, they're paying it, right? And like, good for them. I'm sure they got a lot of money for their house. The second scenario, sellers are going to pay part, buyers are going to pay part. That was about 2, maybe 3% of the time in San Diego. Approximately 1 to 2% of the time in Seattle is my understanding. The third way is the seller pays the full commission, right? Full commission is defined as 2% or more, right? So if you're a 2.5 or you're a 3% agent, you got to figure out how to get that, and I'm going to show you how we're doing that. But that is 95 to 96% of the time in San Diego. I believe it was 97 to 98% of the time in Seattle. Seattle has a longer runway of this. The numbers I'm giving you are the historical data from San Diego, right? All right. All that being said, there's additional paperwork for us. The absolute number one thing that we have to have in order to show a house it's not an open house and to get paid is a buyer broker agreement of some sort. I'm going to show you the EXP buyer broker agreement that is not labeled as EXP. They were smart enough to just make it a generic one. It is the form that I am using. I'm staying away from the CAR form, California Association of Realtor form. It's 4 pages. It's wordy. All the lawyer friends got together with their pad and pen and they all got to write something that got stuck in there. Right? It's just a monstrosity of a document that is, quite frankly, in my experiences, not needed. The shorter 2-page document covers everything you need. Now, there's a second form, seller payment to buyer's broker. It's a CAR form, California Association of Realtors form, SPBB, or similar, depending on where you're at. I do not use this form, and I will explain to you why and how when we get to strategies of how to avoid buyers paying their own commission. This is a form that you have to have. If you do not have this, you are not getting paid through escrow. You will have a major issue. This form you will have to submit to escrow. We will need to send it to them. They will have to verify it. Highly recommend that you have that thing dated before you show them the property. That is by rule, you are supposed to have that dated prior to showing them the property. All right. For some of these legal things, talk to legal, talk to your broker. I am not a broker. I am not your broker. I'm not an attorney, and I am not affiliated with NAR or CAR or SDAR or anybody else. So if you want more clarification, you got to go to someone at a higher level than me. If you are asking for a commission, if you are asking for the seller to pay your commission, and you're going to use the word commission, the SPBB has to be included. I don't ask for a commission, but I still get paid one. I'm going to show you how I do that in a minute. All right, here are the strategies to avoid paying your own commissions. Take a screenshot of this. This is important. This is actually a value proposition. This is number 30. This is the newest one we have. If you're getting that ahead of time, we're going to go over it again in more detail. All right, these are strategies to minimize.
Hey guys, it's Ryan with Agent Blueprint Academy. This has been the first 40 minutes of the 60-minute long lesson 1 in the Buyer's Agent Blueprint Lead to Buyer Broker program. We currently are into the program. We're 1 week in. All the video lessons, all the lessons are recorded on video. All the documentation is available for you. If you think that that material is going to be valuable to you, click that QR code right there. Book a call with me, a discovery call. Let's talk about this. You're only 2 lessons into this at this point. It's easy to catch up to them. They're each about an hour long. That this is material that has the ability to not only protect your income, but grow your income. If you found value in that material, click that QR code. Let's hop on a discovery call.